Do you ever catch yourself stuck in this endless loop where you're just replaying a situation over and over and thinking of all the things that you could have done differently? It's the times where you're thinking, well, I could have done this, or I should have said that. Why didn't I know that this would happen? We're all guilty of it. Like, I myself have been very guilty of it in the past, but it's something I've actively been working to change. And in this video, I'm going to share what has been helping me break free from what I refer to as the shoulda, coulda, woulda cycle. We've all been there before. And maybe this is somewhere that you go often, where you just fixate and fixate on something that happened and it takes over your every waking thought, takes over your sleep. It interferes with just your normal life. You can't let it go. But what you need to remember is that as much as you're thinking about it and it's affecting you still on a daily basis, it's something that happened in the past. And ultimately, there's no way to go back and change that unless you somehow have access to a time machine and can go back with the knowledge you have now and change things. But the reality is that's not how life is. The shift has to be in recognizing that you did the best you could at that point in time with the knowledge you had at that time. Now the situation has happened and you're looking back and you're seeing where things could have been done differently and maybe it would have had a different outcome. But there's a saying, hindsight is 2020, and that saying is there for a reason. Once you have all the facts and you see how things played out, of course you're going to see things differently. That's where having that knowledge now, sometimes we just get stuck in it. And it's like, well, why didn't I know this then? But that's not, this is part of growing as a human, learning from our past and knowing that in the future, if you encounter these situations, you will maybe do things differently. But you can't go back to the past. So the first step to moving on is to truly acknowledge that this situation is in the past. Beating yourself up over and over about something that's already happened isn't doing you any good. And ultimately, it's not going to change the outcome. Now, when I say I'm actively working on breaking this cycle, I'm talking like last year, I went through probably the worst situation where I played the shoulda, coulda, woulda game for, I'm talking, over 6 months. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of what it was because it's a really long and complex story with a lot of background. And that's not really what's important here. But what's important is that the situation happened. The outcome was not what I wanted it to be. And I spent months just working to make sure that everything worked out and that things were all good and everything happened the way I wanted it to. And that's not how things ended up. And, I was very emotionally invested in the situation. Because of that, I took it so personally when things didn't have the outcome that I had hoped. And so for months, I mean, when I say 6 months, honestly, it was probably longer than that. I couldn't let it go. It was all I thought about. I couldn't eat. I couldn't, focus at work. I couldn't sleep at night. I would even wake up in the middle of the night and just start crying. I was so upset. Like I couldn't release it. And, I see a therapist. I talked to her about it and she was like, telling me like, you can't keep doing this. And my friends were telling me you did everything you could, but it didn't matter. I couldn't let it go. I just had so much guilt and so many, I was angry at people who didn't do what they were supposed to do. I was upset with other people and I was upset at these choices that I made that I knew I made what I thought were the best choices, but I felt so rushed that I was like, if I had more time, I wouldn't have made those poor choices. And all that time of doing that, it did nothing. It just kept me in the situation. It kept me in the emotions. And I wish that I could say that one day I just woke up and it didn't matter anymore. But that's not how it happened. I really had to make an effort to say, like, okay, I've got to stop this. Like, living in this endless cycle of emotions and these ups and downs, and I should have done this and could have done that, and the outcome would have been different. And the reality is, I don't know if the outcome would have been different. I think it would have, but I don't know. Realizing that I was fixating in all these negative emotions from it, it wasn't helping me heal. It wasn't helping me move on. All it was doing was keeping me stuck in those emotions and that energy that I felt when everything went wrong. And after going through all of this, what I really want to do is help you avoid doing the same thing I did, where I just spiraled for 6+ months, because no one wants to do that. So I'm going to share some of the techniques that I used, and also just a few little mindset shifts that you can use if you're in this situation now or the next time you feel it coming on. The first thing to remember is that self-judgment keeps you stuck in the past. When we constantly replay mistakes, we're trying to control something that's already gone. It happened in the past, and we have no way to control that or change that. But by us constantly replaying it, it's keeping our energy trapped in the past. The second is that self-compassion is an energetic release. When you forgive yourself, you're freeing your energy to move forward instead of it staying stuck in this moment. If you don't show yourself self-compassion and forgive yourself, your energy is just going to stay trapped. So by forgiving yourself, that energy becomes free to move forward. And the third thing to remember to do, talk to yourself like you'd talk to someone you love. We're often so critical of ourselves, and the way we talk to ourselves can be very harsh. And the things that we say often are things that we would never say to a friend or a loved one. So trying to take that compassion that you would show someone you care about and use it towards yourself. So along with those 3 important steps, I'm going to share a few tips that will really help you kind of anchor in those beliefs and help you move on from this cycle and break this cycle. And so the first is kind of playing off the third tip I mentioned, where you're speaking to yourself as a friend, or like you would speak to a friend or loved one. So there's a technique where you can envision one of your friends or someone you love coming to you, and they're in the same situation and they're explaining it to you. And if it's too hard for you to use the exact situation, just, it could be whatever situation, but something that they would be beating themselves up to the same level that you are. And envision this conversation, play it out in your head of, they're coming to you, they're so upset, they've just been going on, well, I should have done this, and what if I had done that? And that you can just see the anxiety in them, and you can hear it in their voice, and you have such compassion for them. Now, envision what it is that you would say to them as a friend, because I guarantee it's not what you're saying to yourself. So think about what you would say, and then say that same thing to yourself. You can write it, you can think it. I would suggest saying it out loud, maybe looking in a mirror, whatever works for you. But just try that and see how that feels. That's a big one. Journaling is always great as well. But instead of journaling about, oh, this is the situation, here are my feelings, because that can just get you ramped back up, consider writing a letter to yourself from either your higher self, from your future self, your current self, and knowing the outcome and going back and showing compassion, It can even be from a loving ancestor, from a friend, from a relative, from somebody who maybe it's somebody who gives you that loving, compassionate answer and voice when you need it. But try writing yourself a letter and showing true compassion for everything that you did and for your feelings and for what you went through, and letting you know that it is okay to move on and to release it and to forgive yourself. And then with that letter, you can either leave it in your journal, you can tear it up and throw it away, you can, if you like rituals, I like releasing things by burning them. If you do that, make sure you practice fire safety. So either, outside in a bonfire or outside in a like a confined container, something that can easily be put out. But I do find the practice of burning things to release them powerful. Another thing you can do is have either a mantra practice while you're going through. So whenever these feelings start coming up and you start feeling the cycle, you can have some short affirmations that you repeat. It can be one, you can have a series of them. Some of them could be, I did the best I could with what I knew at that time. Or, it's safe to forgive myself and move forward. Or you could use, mistakes are how I grow. And you can either just use these when you feel the thoughts coming on, you can start and end your day with them, or you can even do a little bit of like a breath work practice with it, where maybe you place your hands on your heart, or one hand on your heart, one on your belly. And as you're doing the slow inhale and exhale, you are either repeating the mantra internally in your head, or you can say it out loud. And maybe you take a breath in. Mistakes are how I grow. And you exhale. So whatever works for you. Sometimes it is that visualizing of like, oh, I'm holding this in and now I'm releasing it. Another one you can do is energetic cord cutting. I'm a big fan of this for a lot of things. And you can just visualize an energetic cord that connects you to the situation, the person, the place, whatever it is. And you can either visualize it dissolving, you can see it being cut, and the energy is going back to the situation or the person, and you're releasing those feelings of regret, of guilt, of any self-blame or self-loathing feelings. And envision this golden energy coming back to cleanse and purify and neutralize. So those are just a few different tips you can use. But really, the most important thing is just remembering that the more you are stuck in this cycle of shoulda, coulda, woulda, it's really just this self-judgment that is keeping you stuck. And if you can find self-compassion, that's what's going to set you free. That's what's going to release you from all of these emotions and all this energy and be able to break the cycle. And whether it's from talking to somebody you really love and trust and having a compassionate ear, whether it's a friend, a loved one, a therapist, whoever that is, or using those tools that I mentioned where you're journaling, you're using mantras, you're having affirmations, just finding what works for you. And it could be a combination of all of them, especially if it's something really deep rooted, like what I went through last year. It was months. Sometimes you just go through this for a few days or a few weeks, and it could be something that you break really quick. So give those a try and let me know how they work for you. And if you're watching this right now while you're currently in one of these cycles, I want you to think of one kind thing that you can say about yourself today. And feel free to share that as well if you would like. Thank you for watching. And if you ever want to go deeper with any of this healing and releasing techniques, let me know. I do offer Reiki and crystal healing and transformational hypnosis, and I would love the chance to work with you. Otherwise, subscribe for more of this content. I'll see you soon.